Good morning, Canes fans. Gary Ferman here, the publisher of CaneSport.com, and we are taking questions this morning on the Jaden Rashada decommit that shocked the recruiting world last night, just after midnight, when he sent out a tweet announcing that he would be decommitting from Miami and going to the University of Florida. What this is just the latest salvo in what is evolving into what is going to be quite a recruiting war between these two in-state. We'll call them rivals loosely because they don't meet up on the field, obviously, right now. But they will be in a couple years. And basically what is going on is, this is all tied to NIL. It was no secret when Jaden Rashada committed to Miami back in June that NIL was a big part of the equation. Life Wallet and John Ruiz had, very detailed plans to engage in NIL activities with Jaden Rashada moving forward throughout his career. And Florida never stopped recruiting him. And quite frankly, Rashada was very close back then in June to committing to the Gators. And there was a lot of scuttlebutt at the time about the Florida collective, players talking about how they were not being paid. And I think that contributed to Rashada jumping in the boat with Miami at that time. But Florida never stopped recruiting him. And this was probably always in the works for this 5 or 6 month period. Quite frankly, Rashada had always wanted to play in the SEC, and Florida was a school that he had targeted in that regard. And the one thing that has been noticeable to us as this whole situation has evolved is you've seen all the Miami commits coming through this fall, attending several games, visiting campus. Jaden Rashada was not among them. So my guess is that Mario Cristobal and his staff were not blindsided by this. I feel pretty certain that they have a plan in place for the quarterback position. But there's a lot of dominoes going forward here now with the way that this season has evolved. And a lot of that, as I wrote this morning, is going to take shape at Georgia Tech this weekend, believe it or not, because Miami's got to figure out here in these last few weeks what it has at quarterback. And Jake Garcia's, I'll call it an implosion, for lack of a better word, has really been a little bit of a game changer for the Canes at this position, because there is legitimate question as to whether Jake Garcia can be perceived as a future for Miami at the position, just based on this 3-4 week sample size that we now have of him in the game and the absolute litany of turnovers that have resulted from that. And then over here on the side, you got the Ja'Curry Brown, and you got to kind of find out really quickly here, I believe, what you have in him before you can really go attack this situation at quarterback. And then there's Emory Williams, the other quarterback commit from Milton, Florida, who's sitting on the kind of like the side over here. And he's coming out smelling like a rose. He's just been there soaking it all in, did not get all caught up and rattled by the fact that Jaden Rashada was in the recruiting class as well as him, and just kept working and getting better. He's had a very good high school season. Probably might be right now even a more polished passer, believe it or not, than Jaden Rashada. I'm not sure he has all the same athletic ability and upside and those things. We will find out as time goes on. But Emory Williams is a very good quarterback, and Miami is certainly going to be looking for him to stick in this class, as they have all along. But now, as the only high school quarterback in the class, he comes out looking a lot better. It would have been very easy for him to defect after Rashada committed and say, I'm going to go to some other school. I don't want to compete with Jaden Rashada. To this point, Emory Williams has done the opposite. He's sat tight in the class. And like I said, right now, he's the only quarterback standing. So as we get ready to get into your questions and answer them, the question now becomes, where does Miami go from here? Okay, they will likely take a look at other top tier high school quarterbacks, but most of those guys are committed, and you'd be looking to flip them. I'm sure, NIL prospects would have to be part of that equation and all that. I think Miami more likely will go into the transfer portal and be very actively looking for one or two quarterbacks in the transfer portal, depending on what happens with Tyler Van Dyke and Jake Garcia. Van Dyke, from what we have heard, is already probably having his representatives approached with potential NIL situations and enticements to try to get him to go into the portal and attend another school. That's happening. It's going to continue to happen, and that list will grow. Okay, it's going to become a question: does Tyler Van Dyke want to be at Miami or not? And obviously, he had a very good NIL situation at Miami this year. That situation would certainly get better next year should he come back. So if Tyler Van Dyke chooses to leave Miami, it won't be because somebody is outbidding the Miami collectives and NIL, I guess I'll call them organizations like Life Wallet. Tyler Van Dyke is going to be a very well-compensated quarterback going into next season. There's no doubt about it. Will be very much in demand. The onus will be on Miami to keep him. Jake Garcia's stock is down right now because of the way he's played, but there's a lot of schools around the country that want quarterbacks, okay? And Jake Garcia will have options as well and can't be feeling great right now about his situation and the way that this has gone this year. So there's a chance that Jake Garcia ends up in the portal as well. And think about this now. What if Ja'Cory Brown and Emory Williams are the only two quarterbacks left standing at Miami here going into portal season, which will begin December 5th? That could happen. So be prepared for that. So much to dissect here. This is an evolving situation. We obviously will be covering it every step of the way, as we are right now as we speak. And I'm going to bring in our managing editor, Matt Shodell, here into the conversation. And Matt, I had the late shift last night, which meant I got to receive that Jaden Rashada notice. And I think the biggest thing for Miami is to manage the shock value of it all. I mean, fans are going to panic. The important thing is that the recruits that are on the commitment list right now don't panic themselves and stay positive. Miami will remain a very appealing destination. Miami will be a very active player, if not in recruiting high school quarterbacks now, because it's kind of deep in the game, certainly in the transfer portal. And we saw how Oregon picked up Bo Nix and how that's working out for them. The Martinez kid that went to Kansas State and left Nebraska, who was a starter at Nebraska, that's worked out decently for Kansas State. There will be movement amongst quarterbacks around the country this year for sure. Miami is very well positioned from an NIL standpoint. And one thing I feel certain of, Matt, is Mario Cristobal will have a firm plan in dealing with this. Your thoughts on the whole situation?
Well, I wasn't listening to anything you said as usual, but yeah, I woke up to the news this morning because, like Gary said, he had the late shift. I had the early shift, and I've been spending all morning just, playing tennis, working out, drinking my lattes. No, I've been spending all morning covering this Jaden Rashada mess, okay? I literally have a towel with me right now from all the sweat that I've been accumulating trying to track people down, okay? And I've tracked down some information that's somewhat interesting. I literally, as Gary was just going on and on with his nonsense, I just posted a story on the website, okay? It should be there for people to see. Let me see if it's shown up yet.
Did somebody tell him that this is a serious situation?
Yeah, listen, people can think it's serious all they want. Like, I'm never going to say stuff's as bad as it seems or as good as it seems. Like, that's just me. Like, stuff happens, and
It'll work out.
Teddy Bridgewater was a decommit. Okay, like, stuff happens. Life goes on. Maybe Jaden Rashada will be great, or maybe he'll be the next. Who was it? Todd Centeio. Like, I don't know. Fans freak out, but the portal makes things so much better now. But anyway, I'm waiting for the story to pop up on the front page because people are really going to enjoy reading this. It's on the front page right now. You can read it, okay? I got a screenshot from an unnamed source. I can't even say where it was from, but it's a screenshot of what Jaden Rashada sent to the group commit chat list, all the commits. Okay, this is the message he sent at 11:22 p.m. last night. You can all go on the website right now and read that message. I got a screenshot of it. Okay, and what he said to all the commits 45 minutes before he announced to the world that he was leaving. And the story includes some reaction. I think I got a hold of like 4 different commits and some other sources in the story that you guys can read about what's going on. Because, like I said, I've been sweating, working all morning because of Jaden Rashada. This is because of you, Jaden Rashada. All the sweat on this towel is because of you. Okay. But the bottom line is the commits are, to me, solid. The commits that will not talk to us, generally in the past, that's been a bad sign. I don't know if it's still going to be a bad sign. Right now, the ones that won't talk to us are Kermani McLean and Malik Bryant. Those are the 2 guys who, no, we are not doing interviews with CaneSport, even though we're going to be covering them for 3 to 8 years, depending how many COVID epidemics there are, okay? That's never a good sign. Jaden Rashada would never talk to us. Never. Emory Williams, add him to the list. He, his coach, and his father, maybe they'll talk to us today. We reached out to them, of course, but they haven't been talking. Everyone else has been responding to us over text, reassuring us we're still in, we're solid. So those are the other guys to monitor as this thing goes forward. You guys out there also obviously know the other targets Miami's after, and Miami's going to win some of these battles. They might have some shocking guys who are going to add to the class that you guys aren't even aware of yet, okay, that they're working behind the scenes. You just don't know. With NIL, things are going to be nuts compared to what you guys are used to in December, okay? And there could be some not so good things. Every team is going to have some losses because of NIL. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the screenshot.
Pretty simple.
Yep. And the responses were all curse words. No. Look, these are guys that are friends of Jaden's. They wish him the best. They really do. And I hope Miami fans don't go on social media and start blasting Jaden and saying they hope he does terrible and stuff like that. I know it's a natural inclination to do that, but you know what? It reflects badly on Miami. And guess what? Jaden Rashada might transfer here in a year. But if Miami fans say how much they hate him right now, maybe he will decide to go somewhere else. It doesn't do us any good as a Miami fan base to trash anybody anymore because they might want to come here in a year or two and they'll remember, oh, you know what? Those fans were so nice to me, even though I said I was going to Florida, I think I'll give them another chance, So it doesn't do any good to bash these guys. It just doesn't anymore.
Finishing second is not a bad thing anymore. This is a new world, the kid. It's funny. Matt and I joke around on our Good Morning CaneSport shows.
I don't joke. That's how I actually feel. That's not joking. You may joke.
No, we do. We joke. We joke around about the transfer portal, and Matt calls it free agency. But the truth of the matter is, Matt is not wrong. It's free agency, and essentially on December the 5th, every player in college football is going to be a free agent. And right now, there's a lot of back channel stuff going on. We've heard about potentially 4 schools making a play at Tyler Van Dyke, oh geez!
I put that.
The worst thing that happened is Matt discovered the controls.
Oh my God! I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Yeah, this is not good. This is not
great.
This is not a good thing. But yeah. So every player is going to be a free agent, and everybody on the current roster, not just of Miami, of every school in the country, becomes open season, and you're going to see a lot of movement in December. It is going to be the wild, wild west, wild, wild east, whatever you want to call it, depending on your geography. But there is going to be a lot of movement. Every kid that's on a commit list is going to be an open target for sure. You see schools rallying to pull their NIL base together. They are trying to pool their resources. At Texas, for example, this week, they combined 5 different collectives into one to create a war chest, getting ready for this. At Auburn, they've done the same thing. They've gotten up to $13 million war chest. Here at Miami, Life Wallet through John Ruiz, has said they are increasing their NIL budget from 10 million to at least 15 million. So everybody that's in this arena now is getting ready to deal with this explosion that's going to happen in December. My opinion on it is that the schools that are best able to take advantage of this current situation now are going to have an advantage a year, 2 or 3 from now, because they are going to have better rosters. Okay. Because this is not sustainable, what is going on right now in college football. And, all these collectives raising money to just hand out money to kids to get them to stay at the school, to come to the school. There's not going to be enough money in the world to keep doing this. Okay. It is not sustainable. The people that have this kind of money that are rich did not become rich because they give away their money. Okay. So this is just, it's funny because Antoine Jackson, Matt, he tweeted out round 1 this morning. Like, this is round 1 of what will be many. And it is. There's no doubt about it. It's really round 2 because Miami beat Florida last week for Cormani McClain. And Florida was stunned by that loss. They thought they were going to win that battle. And they come back this week. And I think what you saw late last night was Florida accelerating this process with Jaden Rashada. Like, we want you to commit now. We want you to do the flip now. What I had initially heard was that Rashada planned to decommit and then was going to visit Florida this weekend. Well, that changed, and the Gators were able to get him to not just decommit, but commit to them simultaneously. So Matt, this is all a game. It's gamemanship. It's a quasi. You hate to use the word war loosely. Obviously, wars are very serious things, and a lot of people die in them, and we're seeing that right now in other parts of the world. But we can say this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out battle, not just between Miami and Florida, but Miami and many other schools, and then, of course, these other schools against each other, Matt, as we get into December.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what I just said. Thanks for reiterating. Thanks for reiterating exactly what I said in a lot more words. I'm really concise. I just say
an opportunity to go on another soliloquy.
I mean, who needs my soliloquies? Look, I was asleep at 11:45 last night when the commits got their group chat. 11:22 p.m. when the commits got their group chat. I was asleep when Gary Ferman started freaking out at 12:03 a.m. and throwing stuff all over John Ruiz's basement. But when I woke up this morning, I texted, Gary texted me. He said, go back to bed. There's no news this morning. To which I responded, wow, this was shocking. Frankie Tinalau, he poor Frankie. So I texted the recruits this morning, just to check in, like any thoughts for our reaction story, and Frankie Tinalau, I talked to him actually just before this began. He had just woken up, and he texted me and he said, hey, Matt, I'm up, whatever. I give him a call. And he's like, yeah, he says, I didn't know what happened until I saw your text because I just woke up and your text was the first thing I saw. So I was the poor soul who had to give Frankie Tinalau this news. Frankie said his reaction, I put this at the beginning of my story, Frankie's reaction was probably the same as a lot of us. This was his quote. I was like, what the, it begins with an F and it ends with a QUE or a CK, depending how you pronounce it. And, that was the reaction of the Hurricanes Nation this morning. But should we be surprised? Because Jaden Rashada wanted to go to Florida. We all knew he wanted to go to Florida, but he didn't trust Florida in terms of their NIL deals. Like at Texas A&M, you hear this stuff. Oh, the guys aren't getting paid. I mean, I reached out to Shamar Stewart's, one of his former people, I'll call them.
Former?
What's that?
There's no former.
Well, former high school. It was because he was from high school is what I'm talking about. Yeah, not former, but still obviously heavily involved with him. Because there's all these rumors. Oh, Texas A&M isn't living up to its contracts that it promised people verbally before they signed. Because that's how this stupid system works, right? You can promise you can promise a lawyer who's going to be the player's agent eventually. You can promise a lawyer, hey, if your player comes to our school, he'll get this much money. but you can't sign anything, in most states in America right now. And then they show up and it's like, oh, well, you know what? That person didn't come through and here's what we could do for you, and that's it. So that's like what the word was that I had heard about Texas A&M, but Shamar's person says, no, they've lived up to their obligation to him 100%. Now, Texas A&M is somewhat of a disaster, but can we argue that Miami is that much better? I'm talking about on the field, a disaster, but can we argue Miami on the field? Huh?
Matt, the two schools that were furthest along this year in NIL, whose players probably got paid the best of any school in the country, are Texas A&M and Miami. Look what's happened on the field this year to both schools.
Yeah. Well,
I don't believe there's
again, these are not immediate results. That's what I keep telling fans. Like, they expected Mario to win 10 games this year, not because Miami was supposed to be great, but because their schedule was so easy. Like, we knew, well, at least I knew because I told everybody, this is not a real good Miami team. The reason I thought they'd win 8 or 9 games and everyone else said 10 is because the schedule, like, these teams are awful, man. You should beat Middle Tennessee. You should beat Southern Miss. You should beat Georgia Tech. You should beat Duke. You go down the list. You got 8 wins just handed to you, but they couldn't even do that.
Well, what I was alluding to, though, is
but they're freshmen. Those are young guys they signed.
Between the money in the pockets and the effort level on the field. I really do. And Benny Blades was on the Lamar Thomas show with us this week, and he alluded to that as well. And guys that are former players who played without 5 cents in their pocket, they understand what all this money is going to continue to do to the modern day college football player. And, is it sustainable? I don't think so. But I really do believe that there is a connection between NIL and some of the performances that we're seeing in college football this year. But anyway, I know a lot of you guys have questions, so we are going to jump into them. We're going to take a few minutes here. We're going to go through the questions that you're posting on YouTube. So if you have a question, post it now. Matt and I will spend a little time here this morning and try to cover a lot of these topics. And I'm going to begin right now with Mighty Kane, who's calling this a Gaddis special. And Matt, I don't think this has anything to do with Josh Gaddis, what happened last night. Certainly the way the offense has gone this year has not been great. It's certainly going to be a factor, I think, with Tyler Van Dyke and Jake Garcia's decisions moving forward, maybe even Ja'Curry Brown's decision. We'll see. But I do expect Ja'Curry Brown, by the way, to get some time the rest of the season, potentially even start a game or two. And it's very important that Miami get a read, and I wrote about this morning, on what Ja'Curry Brown can do at this stage of his development on the field after a year, basically, of practice. And I think that they're going to want to see that because that will help shape the decisions that are made moving forward. But, Matt, I don't think this has anything to do with Josh Gaddis. Your thoughts on that subject?
If the Miami offense was throwing the ball for 350 yards a game, if the Miami offense had 40 passing touchdowns, we might be having a different conversation, Gary.
You don't think Rashada still goes to Florida anyway?
Look, I know NIL is a big factor for every top recruit now. I get it. But how as a recruit, if you're a quarterback, can you not see? I mean, he's not blind. Tyler Van Dyke, everyone's saying might leave. Jake Garcia, everyone expects to leave. Ja'Curry, they won't even let him throw passes in games. I mean, if you're a quarterback recruit right now and Josh Gaddis is the offensive coordinator, I don't know that that's a positive. I don't think it is.
But I don't think it impacted Rashada's decision.
I don't know if that's true or not. He won't talk. How do we know? It's all speculation.
You can know just by reading the tea leaves. I mean, he has an agent in California who's very aggressive and was throwing around $9 million figures back in June, making it very clear it's all about the Benjamins with this kid and this family. Florida certainly wasn't going away. They lost out in June because of the perception that they weren't paying their NIL commitments. That's the only reason that Florida lost to Miami in June. Rashada was going to commit to Florida back then, and he flipped from Florida to Miami because of those NIL rumors. And then the third tea leaf would be that Rashada has said that it was always a dream of his to play in the SEC. So I understand the piling on, and yes, Josh Gaddis is certainly under a microscope and justifiably so. I just personally don't think that this situation is connected to Josh Gaddis. Now, Matt, you brought this up a minute ago, and 904 Hurricane is bringing it up as well. if I'm to be brutally honest, I am very concerned that Malik Bryant is next. You mentioned that Malik Bryant has been one of those recruits that has not been very forthcoming as of late. He usually in our business, and this plays out, I'd say at least 85% of the time, when kids stop talking and say, I'm not speaking to anybody or I'm not doing interviews, it's never a good sign. There's usually something going on behind the scenes. And we see this a lot in covering basketball recruiting, where all these kids, have representatives and things like that. And the representatives tell them, don't talk to anybody. It's usually not the greatest of signs in our business when we see that. I believe right now that Malik Bryant is solid to Miami, but he is certainly one of those kids to watch, particularly with this Miami, Florida thing going on, because if there's a school that is going to steal Malik Bryant, Matt, it would probably be Florida.
Florida and Florida State are going to be big players still for Emory Williams and for McLean and for Bryant, the three I mentioned earlier that just won't do interviews for whatever reason. In the past, look, NIL makes everything different, but in the past, you and I both know from doing this for, God knows, way too long, as it comes down to November and December, there are always going to be certain players who just don't really want to do interviews, that don't respond to texts when you just ask, hey, how's it going, whatever. Those players have a much higher chance of decommitting in the end, this is just based on not necessarily research, but just based on what's actually happened, what we have seen happen. Then those who are constantly saying, hey, man, yeah, I might take a visit there, I might take a visit here, I love Miami, I'm still committed. Like those kids, even though they might take visits and are telling us that, they are much more invested than recruits who say, I'm not doing interviews. Why aren't you doing interviews? If you're going to be at Miami for the next 3 to 5 years, why aren't you putting it out there in the public? Hey, I love Miami. The future's so great at Miami. Why aren't you trying to publicly bring in other recruits? You're a 5-star, a high 4-star. Put it out there. Like, we are building something special at Miami. Mario Cristobal, I trust him. The program's not doing great right now, but we're going to be amazing. The fact that they won't even talk to us. We sent we sent one of our reporters, Azubi Charles, to Cormani McLean's school, and Cormani looked at him and said, I'm not talking to you. Like, that's never good. That's never good. Will they still wind up here? Sure. They very well could, but these are just red flags that we've seen in the past, and it's just something to monitor. I'm not saying they're not coming here. As of now, they are all still coming here. It's just, if you want to know, like, who are the guys that I have a little bit of concern with, it's the guys who don't talk to us, who don't say publicly, support the program. I'm going to be here for 3 to 5 years. I want to make this program great, because that means they're trying to help bring other top talent in with them versus just having nothing, just silence, So that's my personal take on it.
The guy whose value just went up last night, not that it wasn't already high, is Tyler Van Dyke. The importance of keeping Tyler Van Dyke here next year is, can't be overstated. And it'll be interesting to see, if Tyler declares himself here before December 5th, because Miami's going to need to know. It will determine who they go after in the transfer portal for sure. Manuel Soto says, Emory Williams is the kid I like, but I think he will also decommit. I think Jaden Rashada's decommitment, Matt, lessens the likelihood of Emory Williams decommitting. I think Emory Williams, by committing to Miami and sticking with Miami, even though Jaden Rashada was there, made a statement like, I really want to go to Miami. If he had a great option at this point, maybe he would have already decommitted. I think his Miami option just went through the roof.
Listen, Emory Williams, to his credit, committed before Jaden Rashada and stuck with it. He easily could have decommitted. Florida State started coming after him. That was the offer that he really was coveting, but they came in a little too late. They screwed up, Emory's a really, really good quarterback. Maybe he's not rated as highly, but look, I've talked, his dad, Steve, you and I have talked to Steve numerous times, but Steve has not talked to us in over a month. Emory has not responded to a single text, even just a text saying, hey, just wanted to check in and see, if you're still solid with Miami. No response. These are their correct phone numbers. They are seeing it and saying, I'm not going to respond. What does that tell us? I don't know. Does it tell us they hate Gary Ferman and Matt Shodell? maybe Gary Ferman. But like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, I'm just keeping it real. Like, this is what we do. This is what the reporter does, and this is what we're finding out from them. Nothing.
I think Emory Williams, obviously it made sense for him to continue to weigh his options right up to signing day, and it probably was not in his interest to really say a whole heck of a lot to this point. I'll be surprised if they don't open up a little bit now. I think this relieves a lot of pressure on them. The thing with Emory Williams is he's not quite as talented as Jaden Rashada. Okay, he's just not. But he is right now. He's leagues ahead of Jaden Rashada in terms of football IQ and some of the intangibles of the quarterback position. So Miami getting Emory Williams as one of the quarterbacks on its team is nothing to like just shrug your shoulders at. He's a very good prospect, a very good quarterback. I watched him work out at the Mario Cristobal camp, and let me tell you something, every bit as impressive as guys like Jake Garcia, certainly a more impressive passer than a Ja'Cory Brown. So this is not like oh geez, Miami's only getting Emory Williams. He's a very good quarterback prospect and could be a very important piece to the puzzle. But like I said, I think that keeping TVD now is the hugest of deals for this program in the near term, and I'm sure that a lot of efforts over the next couple of weeks are going to go into that because TVD is already having other schools coming after him. Matt Brown says that Coach Mario Cristobal has to address the offensive coordinator position. This is probably the biggest crisis of the many on Mario's plate right now because of the way Josh Gaddis has struggled here in the first year. I believe he has a 3-year contract. He's got a lot of money coming to him down the road, but there have been issues that we've heard that he's got communication issues with some of the kids, that some of the kids don't like him. The games have not been going well. There's a lot there right now with Josh Gaddis that Mario Cristobal has to juggle here in the coming weeks. And I think you would agree, pretty hard for us to predict right now what's going to happen with Josh Gaddis.
I mean, from everything you hear, he's got I think a $4 million buyout. They'd have to pay for a new coach, a new top coordinator to come in. Mario Cristobal has said at least twice that I remember, probably more times, that referring to him winning the Broyles Award, like, I guess that's a vote of confidence. I don't know. I mean, I don't care about awards, man. Like, I care what I see on the field. I don't know why Mario keeps talking about awards and what they did at Oregon and what they did. All these coaches came from amazing places and decided to come here. Like, I don't need to hear that stuff, man. I just want this program to be great again. Like, I care about the future, not the past. And the present isn't good. The present isn't good. I wish Mario would talk more about the present because we really haven't got a sense for his plan, the blueprint he mentions. Like, what is the blueprint?
It's evolving, Matt. I mean, there can't be.
Great. Well, I like specifics. Believe it or not, I like specifics. When a politician tells you,
you have to have patience.
When a politician tells you, hey, I'm going to make inflation go away, don't you want to know how? Or you say, oh, okay, he's got a blueprint for inflation to fix it. I'll vote for him. That's who you vote for, Gary. Just some guy who says, I'll fix everything. You vote for him. That's great.
This is a fluid situation. You got to have a little patience. And I think part of that, Matt, part of that patience starts with Mike Williams' post here. He says, start Ja'Cory Brown the rest of the way. Don't kid yourself. We're not sure if Tyler Van Dyke will be ready to go against Clemson or not. We're pretty sure he will not be ready to go at Georgia Tech tomorrow. And Mario Cristobal and Josh Gaddis have to decide. Do they start Jake Garcia and take the Virginia game plan and take the game into the mud and try to eke out a victory up there against Georgia Tech? Or do they throw all their chips into the middle of the field and say, no, this is the moment we're going to find out what we have with Ja'Cory Brown? And you're talking about Ja'Cory Brown going back home to Georgia. Well, that's the choice. That's the choice. Listen, Ja'Cory,
we're going to find out.
Before you say a word, that is their choice. Ja'Cory Brown, no matter how excited anybody might be about him, is not as prepared to go win that football game tomorrow as Jake Garcia, even with all of his recent struggles. Jake is further along as a quarterback. But in the big picture, it is important here that Miami figure out very, very quickly what it has in Ja'Cory Brown. And there is no better way than to throw him out there on the field tomorrow against Georgia Tech and see what he can do under the lights. And I'm not talking about what we saw against Florida State, where they let him throw 9 passes, but only one of them was really down the football field. I mean, if you're going to put him out there, you got to give him an offense to run, and you have to let him try to be a major college quarterback. Look, that's my opinion. There's no point in putting him out there if you think you got to protect him. So it's going to be really interesting at 3:30 tomorrow, Matt. When that decision will obviously be known, and I don't know, man. It's a tough one for Mario. He can go either way with it. I don't know how important it is to him at this point. Is every win right now as important as figuring out the future? I think it's about the future as much as anything. He's already going to have to take the hit and the pounding from not having a winning season this year. I think personally that we will see a lot of Ja'Cory Brown tomorrow. Your thoughts?
My thoughts is stop calling him Ja'Cory. It's Ja'Cory. And my issue with what you said is you said we are going to find out what we have in Ja'Cory Brown. We are not going to find out what we have in Ja'Cory Brown because Ja'Cory Brown has not been prepared for this moment by Frank Ponce and Josh Gaddis. He was not supposed to be in this position. He was supposed to be a red-shirting third teamer until they realized, our offense has some major problems. They miscalculated what was going to happen with the offense. They miscalculated the problems.
Come on, Matt. There was no.
They miscalculated. They built no offensive line depth, and you can't account for injuries, but injuries happen all the time, usually in the trenches. They don't have any offensive line depth. That's a fact. And the biggest problem we're going to have is people like Gary Ferman that are going to indict Ja'Cory if he can't throw the ball successfully tomorrow or on Saturday. Is tomorrow Saturday? Tomorrow's Saturday.
I'm not going to indict him. I mean, I've already seen him not throw the ball well.
Correct. So you're going to indict him.
I don't know. Ready for that.
Let me speak for 2 minutes. So you're going to indict, and a lot of people.
30 minutes.
You're going to indict Ja'Cory, and so will a lot of people. If he looks really bad throwing the ball, people are going to freak out, be like, "Wow!" Now we
applaud him if he looks great, because that will mean he has improved a lot.
If he doesn't do well, people are going to say, "Wow, look at the big problem Miami has." And I'm not sure he will throw well because, from what I understand, he looks okay at times on the scout team. But from what I understand, just hearing from sources, Josh Gaddis does not trust Ja'Cory Brown to throw the ball down the field, to the point that last game we saw him try to put Jake Garcia in twice on third downs to pass the ball because he said Ja'Cory can't pass the ball. So my guess is, unless Ja'Cory is somehow much better in games, which maybe he will be throwing the ball on the road, that people like Gary Ferman and fans out there will say he's not the answer. But that won't be true. That won't be true. He has been working on mechanical issues since he got here. It is why he missed wide, giant nets on the field that Gary Ferman could have hit with his golf club and golf ball. Okay, probably not because he's a terrible golfer, but you get my point. He was working on mechanical issues. He wasn't supposed to play this year. This was supposed to be a year of development for him. He's still mid-development. He doesn't even know how to line up the offense. You saw it happen twice last game where they had to call timeout because Ja'Cory couldn't get them in the right offense for what the Florida State defense showed. And it's not fair to judge him based on that. It's not fair for the Gary Fermans of the world to say we're going to find out what we have in Ja'Cory Brown based on this game. That is not true. Ja'Cory Brown has a very bright future no matter if he's 0 for 30 passing this game. It will not be indicative of how he can look when he's coached up by an amazing Broyles Award winner. Whoever won the Broyles Award before Josh Gaddis I'm talking about. No.
Jake Campbell brings up an interesting point. If you think 5-star players and transfers fix things, you're lying to yourself. The scheme is crap. Schemes are fluid, man. You can change schemes. You can't change players, man. Players are everything, and good players will succeed in most schemes. I mean, this whole thing, like this guy's only built for a certain scheme. I mean, listen, it's about the players. It's about the quality of the players. And to Matt's comment a minute ago, there was, listen. It's easy pickings right now piling on Josh Gaddis. I mean, he's had a horrendous first year at Miami, but there was no way to plan for what has gone on here this year. And, I mean, you're going to plan for Tyler Van Dyke getting pounded into submission. Okay, fine. Quarterbacks get hit, they get hurt. All right. So you got to have Jake Garcia ready. they had Jake Garcia ready. Who the heck would have suspected? They have never seen this on the practice field. Jake Garcia to lose his mind in games and start holding the ball too long and getting strip sacks. You might see a quarterback get 1 or 2 strip sacks in a year. I mean, we're seeing 2, 3 of them in individual games. I mean, Jake Garcia has had 4 or 5 strip sacks in the last few weeks. Who expected him to become the turnover machine that he has become? There was no way to plan for that. So, Matt talks about having Ja'Quari better, but I mean, better prepared rather. I mean, he's been the scout team quarterback. I mean, you can't prepare 3 quarterbacks. So I was the one that said, and I still stand by this early in the year, I watched this kid on the practice field and I saw an absolutely dynamic athlete. I mean, he is an unbelievable athlete. I saw that he was really struggling as a passer. And my thought back then, and man, I wish they had done it, was to freaking go outside the box, man, and don't think cookie cutter, and take this kid and make him an all-purpose back. A guy that can line up at wide receiver, a guy that can line up in the slot, that can take jet sweeps, that could throw the ball as on receiver flanker passes and things like that. They had an opportunity with Ja'Quari this year to do a lot of unique things, and we started to see it a little bit at midseason. We've seen the jet sweeps, we've seen the design quarterback runs up the middle. I think this trip to Georgia Tech is an opportunity to do even more, and I do think at some point, and this would be the week to do it because of the level of competition, they have to take the shackles off this kid and see. It's important that they see where they are with him right now, because that will help shape all of these other decisions that need to be made in the coming weeks. So that's why I say to Matt, you got to have patience. This whole thing has not played out yet. There's the Jake factor. What's Jake going to do? There's the Tyler factor. What's Tyler going to do? There's the Ja'Quari factor. Where is he in his evolution as a major college quarterback? If he's not there now, where will he be 6 months from now? These are all very important factors, Matt, that are all going to be part of the final equation.
Listen, I'm the glass half full. I'm the glass quarter full, glass 3/4 empty guy. Like, I'll believe it when I see it. I've been disappointed too many times. Do I think Mario Cristobal will get the program back right? Yes. Do I pray that John Ruiz, uses some of his supposed billions of dollars and make some magic happen? Yes, of course. Do I hope that Miami is in the playoffs within 2 to 4 years, as I've been predicting? Yes, because I've never been wrong on a prediction before. We'll see what happens. But again, like my time machine downstairs is not finished. I don't know what's going to happen in the next month. It appears that almost all of the commits are very solid to Miami, which is great. And then you just got to add a few more, go into free agency, grab a bunch of guys in free agency using all that Ruiz money, and then everything looks a lot better. But if it doesn't happen, if Miami loses these last 3 games badly, if people start bashing Miami fans start bashing Mario Cristobal and that hurts recruiting. Believe it or not, I know it's a shocker, Gary.
It's a PR game now, no doubt about it.
So there's a lot of unknowns where I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to be fine, just relax, it's just a matter of time. No, they need to show some improvement these last 3 games. They need to keep all these commits on board, add another 5 or 6 more, and do well in free agency. Then I'll be like, okay, man, we are rolling, we are ready, everything's going to be fine. Because there's other programs that have done it. Now it's Miami's turn, but they have to do it. Mario talks about we've done it everywhere else and da-da-da-da. Well, he hasn't done what's happening here. He came to an Oregon program that was, I think, 4-8. And his first year when he was not the head coach, I think they won 5 or 6 games. And then he became the head coach and they won, 9 games. But he never took over a program, and his first year as the head coach was worse than the year before. That has not happened to him. This is new territory. He can say all he wants, we've done this a million times. This is not what he's done before. He has not gone to a program and won 3 or 4 games his first year there. So it's new territory for him. He has to figure it out. He has to find out where the disconnects are, whether it's the coaches whether he's got to blow up the entire roster, a mixture of both, whatever it is, he's going to make the decisions that Mark Richt wouldn't do by telling his son, sorry, John, you're not a good enough quarterbacks coach. Make a decision that Al Golden didn't make by saying, hey, sorry, my best friend, you're gone. The defense sucks under you. You could go down the list. There's other coaches we can point to and say, in retrospect, these were their mistakes, or else Miami could have really gotten to a new level. With Manny Diaz, his biggest mistake was just he didn't like recruiting, and we would go to his recruiting events, and he would be in a corner with his coaches while all the recruits were riding scooters and playing games, and like no interaction, because we'd be watching from the street into the tent, and we'd be like, what's happening? So every head coach to now has either been afraid to make coaching changes because they were best friends or family members, afraid to make personnel changes to players because they didn't want to upset, whoever, or just didn't want to recruit real hard. And it was the country club atmosphere aspect. Mario doesn't put up with any of that. Mario is a head cutter, man. Like if this was, I'm trying to think of the Golding book. What the heck was it? On the Island? You don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the conch shell, that would be Mario Cristobal would have the conch shell. He would be, killing everybody else on the island, whatever it took to survive, man. That's Mario. That's what you need. You need a head coach who's a real jerk. Mario Cristobal is the biggest jerk I've ever met, and that's a compliment because that's what you need. Nice coaches are terrible coaches.
All right, McCormick here. So Gary always gives coaches a pass. I don't know where that came from. I've spent this whole show talking about what a horrible season Josh Gaddis has had, and he's had a horrible season. There's no doubt about it. Is that a guarantee that Mario's going to fire him? No. There's a lot of layers to that situation, and one of them is brought up by Bernell Rick Moore, who says, can TVD and Gaddis coexist for another season? Matt, we know from many sources that the TVD Gaddis, many of the offensive players Gaddis relationship has not gone great. We saw Keyshawn Smith's mom tweet about Gaddis earlier this year. She was one of the first to take.
By the way, that was the book. Thank you very much, Mike Stahl. You are a true connoisseur of literature. Well done, sir.
But it's been clear that there have been issues this year in that regard. Can TVD and Josh Gaddis exist into next season, or does Josh Gaddis have to go, Matt, in your opinion, for TVD to feel comfortable coming back to Miami next year?
I mean, everything I've heard, and by the way, let me respond. Somebody said I'm always shading Ruiz. I am not shading Ruiz. John Ruiz is saving this program.
He's saving the Miami program.
I can't say it any more clearly. I've said it. Let me talk.
John Ruiz.
Let me talk for a minute.
Is out of their minds. No, because let me tell you something. They're fair. Like sometimes they don't. The way you say things and stuff makes people think that you're shading John Ruiz. That's fair. But anybody shading John Ruiz is out of their minds. That guy is single-handedly saving the entire Miami Hurricanes athletic program. And if you have animosity towards John Ruiz because you don't like something he might have done in the past that rubbed you the wrong way, or you're jealous because of the way he flaunts his money and has money and things like that, get over it if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan. That's
all right. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, we already said the same thing. Okay,
but
as I've said consistently, as long as he pays the checks, I'm good with John Ruiz. And people take that like a negative thing. That's the truth.
And in fairness to you, Matt, there are a lot of people in town, some of whom you know, who don't have favorable things to say based on things that they've had in the past. He's an attorney. He's had cases against a lot of people. He's rubbed some people the wrong way, whatever it might be. I think there are a lot of various opinions around town. But the one thing that is absolutely unquestioned is he is saving Miami athletics.
He clarified because I said supposedly a billionaire. The reason I said that is because it's on paper. It's based on his stock options, which he hasn't exercised yet, and the stock could tank. So yeah, he's supposedly a billionaire because it's not real money yet. Okay, that's why I said that. Anyway, that's just a fact. Anyway, we're talking about TVD, and I'll just keep it real, okay? Because with Josh Gaddis, because I've heard this from multiple people. I'm not here to just whatever. I'm here to just tell fans what I hear. You can decide if it's true or not. What I hear is that Josh Gaddis is very upset with the quarterback play and very upset with the offense, and rightfully so. However, he's not able to compartmentalize that. I can't say more than 2 syllables. And because of that, he's sort of taking it out, so to speak, on the quarterbacks. He's not giving a lot of positive energy in the quarterback's room, and the quarterbacks apparently do not like that. And they do not apparently want to continue to play for him next year, okay? And that includes Ja'Carri Brown. So he needs, if Josh Gattis can just find a way to be a little more positive on a consistent basis, I think that would help a lot. Maybe after the last game, he has a heart-to-heart with these guys and says, hey, look, I was very frustrated. Whatever it is, like, he's got to figure it out, because from what I've heard numerous times from multiple people throughout this season now is the quarterbacks are not enjoying the way he is teaching them. He's upset, rightfully so, but you can't necessarily as a coach blame your players. A coach is a teacher, not a blamer. At least that's what they're supposed to be. He's apparently been a little more of a blamer, and that's not working well. That's it. That's all I've heard. That's the truth from what I've heard from numerous people, not just one person. And that's all I got to say about that.
And I've heard the same thing. So we actually agree on something, which is a positive for 10:25 this morning. All right. Obviously, this is an emotional subject. There's a million layers to this. We have a ton of work to do. Stay tuned to CaneSport.com. We will continue bringing you all the breaking news on this evolving situation. We've got a story on the website now where you could see the actual message that Jaden Rashada sent to his fellow teammates. And, obviously we have coverage of the evolving quarterback situation as it pertains to the Georgia Tech game this weekend. It's going to be the Jake Garcia, Ja'Carri Brown show for sure. The question is who's going to start. You could see that there's a lot of debate going on amongst the fans about all these different subjects that are pertinent. So stay tuned to CaneSport.com. Spend your day on our message board. We will continue to bring you, I'm sure, a lot of news going forward as the day continues. So for Matt Shodell, the crazy Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you so much for joining us for this episode of CaneSport Right Now, and we will see you next time, everybody.